Hi guys, today I'm out in the woods and I wanted to show you some setup I use with my hammock and my tarp. DD hammock and a DD tarp, and this is for it's a kind of a convenience setup, or if you're too lazy to carry around a lot of stuff. You know, this is the period where today it's probably maybe 10-12 degrees. Really nice day to be out in the woods. You can get tricked into camping, but quite often, like maybe around 6 o'clock in the evening, the sky will suddenly clear, and before you know it, it's -8. Well, sleeping in a hammock in -8, then you need a good sleeping bag, obviously, and you need also, well, but it's really nice to have like an under blanket. But if you don't want to carry all that and just, well, you think maybe it will be alright, or you get surprised by the cold, I will show you a way how to be pretty warm in your hammock without a sleeping bag and without anything, with this really easy setup. So I will show you that. You see, I have hung already my hammock in its sleeve between two trees. It's pretty loose for a DD, and I need it to be pretty loose right now because I'm going to need to have a bit of slag in there. Right, so I will remove the sleeve. And this sleeve is a bit thick right now, or filled up, because my tarp is in there as well. That's not really the idea with the sleeve that comes with the DD hammock, but it can be done. But it makes it some sort of a very tight sausage. I know this is pretty normal for Hennessy users and so on, but for a DD that's quite a feat. Well, I will have to take the camera by hand now because I have to show you a feature. What you're seeing here is that the tarp, it has been, well, knotted around the tree huggers, the lines from the DD hammock, and I will show you that a bit better in a moment. But this one was already packed like that. But I will first show you the tarp, how I have attached it here to the lines by putting up the center line. Here's the ridge line of the tarp, and I will put it up that tree so that we can see how this looks. So I took the camera in my hand now so I can show you. Put up the ridge line, and you see the tarp is hanging from that. And it's not, I just hang it so that we can see how this looks. It's not going to be like that. And this flap on this side, I'm going to put to the other side so that we can see. Right, so we're now looking at the inside of the tarp here. You see the inside? Here is the hammock. And you see I folded it around my hammock. This is the tarp. This is the tarp. And this is the hammock. I folded it around. With quite a lot of space there. And attached the tarp on the end of my hammock. You have to be very careful that you have enough space so that you don't rip your top. But that's also why my hammock is hanging quite loose. And you need quite a lot of free, loose hanging top here. So, same thing on this side, of course. Don't make this really hard knots, because if you really put some force in that, you might damage your material. This is just to keep it there, nothing else. You can use bungee cord as well, it doesn't matter. I just use the cords that were on the top anyway. So, now remove the ridge line from the tree, because that's not where it should be. It should be, we want the tarp really close to the hammock. So I'm going to attach, and it might seem a bit strange, but I'm going to attach the ridge line to the tree huggers of the hammock. Now we just want to keep this really quite loose. This is not a setup for beauty, this is a setup for keep going through the night. And you notice that I have not, the last loops are not, the ridge line is not threaded to the last loops on this side and on that side. I always have that, but even now. And I'm going to fasten that very close onto the ridge line now. So now we can adjust this. This ridge line should be very almost slack, about just as slack as the hammock is. Now on this side, you see, I'm going to close it off slightly. And what I do is I take this round, this loop, and with the little guy wire up here, I just attached it so that it's closed. Right. Got a nice tree here, so I can tie off this. This doesn't need to be really tight. We don't want anything really tight here. So, I will walk you around this one. We have created basically a hanging Bivi bag. Well, and you see, this is the top. Here is the hammock. So you can stuff your coat and your stuff in here to create an extra layer of isolation. Already hanging like this, it's an extra layer. But I will now show you how it looks from the inside. Just before I get in, I forgot one little detail. And that was this bungee cord from the, you see, from the mozzie net. It's really nice to have that one up. It doesn't need to be high, there are no mosquitoes anymore. But I will tell you in a minute why that is important. Right, so I'm in my hammock. And I can assure you this is already getting really warm. So about the mozzie net, you see this? is hanging loose here. It's just tied slightly because I did attach it to the ridge line. I don't know if you ever slept in a hammock with a mozzie net, but if you put your hand outside of it in the middle of the night, you will notice it's much colder outside. Even though there's tiny holes everywhere, of course, it still keeps in air and it allows your body to warm up that air. And that is what isolation is all about, keeping a body of air relatively quiet, not moving, not flowing, so that you are able to warm it up. In this case, we have the mozzie net keeping the air in here warmer, and on the outside there's a little bit of air again, and then we have the cocoon of the tarp. I'm basically cocooned inside my tarp. There at the feet end, I've wrapped it around so it's pretty much closed off there. You can never get it completely closed off, but this will certainly do in an emergency. So I got kind of a double layer. Mozzie net, air, tarp. And I'm cocooned in that. Up here I've still got some air because, yeah, like I showed you, I anchored one of the corners of my tarp to a little tree. You could of course anchor that closer to your hammock to create even more cocoon, but like this is feeling, it's pretty warm already. I'm beginning to sweat in here. So this is a pretty neat idea if you need to be warm. Because the tarp is going around, I try to show you, open. See, this is there's my hammock. But here I have the tarp. You see, this is one of the loops on my tarp. So if you put like your coat or some sweater or whatever under here, you create an extra layer of isolation for your shoulders and your back. But even without it, you're still trapping air inside of there. Yeah, it's pretty hard to see that, but you're basically creating an under blanket at the same time. Well, it's a cocoon, of course. I'm looking pretty stupid in here, but hey, what am I going to do? But I assure you this is pretty warm. And certainly a good way to deal with an unexpected cold night. Well, there you have it. The DD hanging Bivi bag, I would call it. It doesn't matter, and it certainly works with other brands of hammock as well. This tarp is a square 3 by 3 meters. The thing is that the way you attach the tarp is quite normal in Hennessy hammocks, for instance. But yeah, usually not the case with DD. And it really is warm. So even though it looks a bit weird, it's certainly worth it, and not worth having a sleepless night shivering. You saw how I packed it up. It was all in one sleeve. That's not something I can recommend. You should not have your tarp in your sleeve, because if your tarp is wet, you will get water into the hammock. You don't want that. But I will show you how to do that. But the prerequisite is that you have, in this case, a DD travel hammock or another brand of hammock that has a watertight underside. So first I'll remove this. Right. Of course, when it's raining, you shouldn't put away your tarp, because you don't want rain in here, right? But now it isn't. So then I can show you what I do. So the trick is that you turn it around. And this is a watertight side of the hammock. So if your tarp is wet, it comes on the underside and not inside the area where you sleep. That's really important, to turn over your hammock. Otherwise you will be sleeping in a pool of water. And if you use this method correct, you can actually put away your hammock and tarp and put it up again in the rain without getting your hammock soaked. But that needs a bit of practice. You don't want to experiment with that when you actually need a dry hammock. And it is pretty neat that all you need to sleep warm in late September here, where it can be freezing at night, is this little bundle. But then you have to know how to set it up. Well guys, I hope you liked this little demonstration, and I'll see you on the next movie. Bye bye.